what comes to mind when you say the name Deadwood? Lots of Wild West shoot-'em-up days, lots of carousing and drinking going on, and characters like Wyatt Earp, Calamity Jane, and oh yeah, this guy here, Wild Bill Hickok. And there was gambling, no doubt about it. Lots of gambling, right? Throughout the years, the Wild West has been romanticized and fictionalized, mainly by the folks in Hollywood. But Deadwood seems to encapsulate it all. This is no TV show, this is no movie, this is reality. This is Deadwood.
The town was born as a result of the Black Hills Gold Rush of 1874. Even though the area had been promised to the Sioux Indian tribes by the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, General George A. Custer led his army and the first group of gold miners into the area now known as Deadwood. The miners were followed by merchants selling goods to the miners. After that, the brothel owners set up shop, and then there was the saloons with their gambling. Lots of gambling.
From the beginning, there were people that weren't necessarily part of the gold rush that had their own claim. There are those that recognize that, well, those who are here trying to make that money need some downtime, some entertainment. And so we've had some famous and colorful people that would either operate a saloon or a casino or even a brothel just to give that entertainment to the people that were coming to town. Deadwood's always been a place from the beginning as a place where people came to entertain themselves. You know, it was where they'd let their hair down, enjoy a little fruits of their labor, if you will, kick back and imbibe in some of the activities we had in town. And gaming was one of them from the very beginning. You see it in the movies, you see it in the series, you see it on TV, but you can actually go to some of our museums here in town and see historic roulette wheels or craps tables or a faro card or a faro table, and so that did exist and was very prevalent in Deadwood.
Because again, the miners were out working, you know, panning their gold, working their claim, and then they would come into town to resupply or just cool off for a while.
Absolutely. You know, it's not you know, all work all the time. You've got to have some time to enjoy what you're doing, and they would come in and, you know, seek the company of a female, or maybe look up an old friend, or just simply quench their thirst, if you will, at one of the casinos and gambling establishments as well.
Wyatt Earp and Wild Bill Hickok were just a couple of the colorful characters who spent more than just a few hours at a Deadwood poker table. And in the case of Hickok, it's where he took his last breath.
He came trying to work a claim, and he wanted to be done with the life of a lawman, and kind of test his hands at gold panning and staking, finding his riches. But that didn't work out. He ended up finding himself back doing what he always did, which is going to those saloons and playing poker. Loved to play cards, and on one bad day with a bad decision decided to go against his own superstitions and sat with his back to the door at Nuttall and Mann's saloon number 10. Jack McCall, Crooked Nose Jack, they called him, and he circles the table, looks up everybody, pulls a pistol, and shoots Wild Bill in the back of the head. And that's the day that Deadwood is famous for, has always been famous for, probably forever will be famous for.
Deadwood is famous for Wild Bill Hickok getting shot in the back of the head.
It's what put Deadwood on the map. It's what made everybody say, I want to go see this place where a man playing cards with aces and eights, the old dead man's hand, was playing poker and met his match by some guy from the back, from a vantage point that he couldn't see.
As the decades passed, Deadwood found itself on the verge of becoming just another Old West ghost town, a relic with no hope for a future. Having a series of major fires in town didn't help the situation either. But all that changed in 1986 when a group of local citizens came up with an idea called Deadwood, You Bet.
They came up with the idea of going statewide and getting legalized gaming because it was part of our history to really get the okay to do that. And that was simply for the preservation, historic preservation and restoration of Deadwood.
So it wasn't for the revenue.
Correct.
It wasn't for the money. It was specifically done for the end goal being historic preservation. Am I hearing correctly?
That is correct. Because, you know, they realized that the uniqueness of Deadwood, whether it be a gaming town or a tourist town, was its rich Old West history. It was Wild Bill Hickok, it was Calamity Jane, it was Seth Bullock. Those names were actual people, and people used to come here, and still do, to learn about that history and walk the same footsteps. And so when they made the push to legalize limited stakes gaming in Deadwood, it was, and it reads in the Constitution, that the net municipal proceeds go for the historic preservation and restoration of historic Deadwood.
What was that initial lobbying effort like when they decided to go to Pierre and convince state lawmakers that this is what we should be doing? Do you know what the reaction was?
I know that they basically said, well, good luck. We need you to go across the state and convince everyone, all the good people of the state of South Dakota, that this is something they want.
Wait. They were told they had to go all over the state of South Dakota to say, we want to do this in Deadwood.
Just like a petition drive, go around, and they were at the state fair, and they were at a county fair, and they were going to all these communities and saying, this is what we would like to do, and this is the vision we have for Deadwood. But it was much tougher than that just here at home, because when it came to the actual city of Deadwood itself, they had to make sure that 2/3 of the registered voters in the city of Deadwood voted for this limited stakes gaming. Not of the voter turnout, but of actually the people on the voter rolls. You had to make sure that everybody came out to vote and everybody exercised their voice as to whether they thought this was good for our community.
Deadwood, You Bet got the needed signatures to put the measure on the ballot, and in 1989, legalized limited wager gambling became law in the state of South Dakota, limited only to the town of Deadwood.
That was what was proposed to the legislation. That was ultimately what was voted on by the entire state and added to the Constitution, that it is limited to the city limits of Deadwood as it was in 1989. So even increased annexation or expansion by the municipality of Deadwood itself cannot contain any more gaming.
Wait. So you have to draw out the map of Deadwood as per 1989 and say, we can't have any gambling beyond this line?
That is correct. We agreed that if there was any annexation or expansion of the community, this is where the line is drawn, and this is where it will be contained within. And so that's, that would, theoretically, if gaming were so successful and you wanted to expand it to include the entire state, what would stop you from annexing the entirety of the state and saying it's part of Deadwood? And that's not what the people wanted. They wanted it for the history and the restoration of Deadwood itself.
Since the legalization of gambling in Deadwood in 1989, hundreds of millions of dollars have been poured into the building of new casinos, hotels, and restaurants. And the same is true for the rebuilding and renovation of the town's historic buildings and infrastructure. Nothing short of a rebirth. Since gambling was legalized at the dawn of the 1990s, Deadwood has gone through a transformation. Gone are the days of desperados and miners. Nowadays, it's history buffs, tourists, and families. The dusty Main Street and dingy saloons have been replaced by upscale hotels and restaurants, and casinos that get a gambler's blood flowing. Places like Cadillac Jack's and Tin Lizzie's gaming resorts.
Okay.
I think it's awesome that Deadwood is the destination for, you have multiple casinos in Deadwood, you have multiple offerings, it's highly competitive, and Deadwood does a really good job of taking care of the guests that do come here.
Is it a good or a bad thing to have the restrictions you do? And what I'm talking specifically about is the 1989 boundaries where you can't expand beyond that.
No, I think it controls the size of Deadwood. It keeps the competition focused within the boundaries of Deadwood, which I think is a good thing. You know, within the historic district, you know, gaming is offered, but to expand outside of that, I don't think it would be a good thing for Deadwood. Deadwood is very unique in its own, with all the history that Deadwood offers. You know, so I think it's a good thing.
You mentioned the word competitiveness. How do casinos here compete against one another?
Well, it's if they don't like what you're offered here, they can go right up the street. It's right next door. So everybody, especially at Cadillac Jack's, we try to offer the best gaming experience for our customers possibly. So like we've said, you don't have to go anywhere. We've got everything here for you. We've got food, we've got hotels, we've got all the offers in table games, we have sports betting. We have everything that everybody else in Deadwood has. Some offer just slots, some offer slots table games, but we're a one-stop shop.
I'm sure you've got to be tracking where your customers come from. Can you give me some idea? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming a lot of them come from South Dakota or the Black Hills, but where else are they coming from?
Yes, you're right. The Black Hills is one of our core demographics. However, we do see a lot of visitors coming from out of state. We get some from Nebraska. As far away as Colorado, Wyoming is right next door. And we do have quite a few players from the Montana area as well. So
Montana, okay.
Yeah, and you know, as I talk to our guests, I recognize the further away they're coming from, those are the ones that were drawn to Deadwood because of we were open during the pandemic. And I see them coming back and again.
So kind of a mixed blessing, I guess. They come here because of the pandemic, and then they see what you've got to offer, and so they come back.
That's right. That's right.
Times are good right now for Deadwood's gaming industry. The gamblers and sightseers are back after the coronavirus pandemic. Sports betting is now in the mix, and there's a vibe of let the good times roll. But that doesn't mean the casinos don't have their challenges.
It's been a struggle to find employees. We are seeing a slight return back to normalcy with employment opportunities, but we're still struggling. And as part of our foundation providing outstanding service, we want to hire the best and the employees that will treat our guests the best. And so the pool shrinks even a little bit further.
Biggest challenge is the slow times of the year, the shoulder seasons, but we rely on the local customer, the local base. We still see a lot of people traveling from outside jurisdictions like North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Nebraska, Colorado even, Minnesota, Iowa, but they still come around, but not as frequently as they do in the summer. Summer becomes a destination for people, destination for families that are looking for experience. So with the amount of hotel rooms that we have, it's filling those hotel rooms up, which generates more people that we have the potential to get on the casino floor and game.
According to the South Dakota Department of Revenue, legalized gambling brought in more than $12 million in tax revenue in 2022. That's a pretty big chunk of money. But you can't compare Deadwood to other gambling getaways like Atlantic City or Las Vegas, because Deadwood literally plays its own kind of game.
It's difficult to equate Deadwood gaming with gaming in other jurisdictions. It's just a different environment, it's a different product, and it's definitely a different consumer base, and therefore we have to operate differently. And we do, and part of the manifestation of that is we really focus on our locals, our local demographic, and providing year-round entertainment.
Deadwood is unique. It is very unique. Sure, I mean, Vegas has a lot more offerings than what Deadwood does, but there's a little bit of Vegas inside of Deadwood. I mean, you can have all the experience that you would have in Vegas except for maybe some of the larger shows, but I mean, the city, some of the other operators in town do a very good job of providing entertainment in town. There's all kinds of events that happen in town. That really drives a lot of people into the area. Days of 76 rodeo, professional bull riding, be having motocross all-in show this weekend over at the Daisy 76. Just had Back When They Butt, that's new events. Monster trucks. There's always something coming on the horizon, and we'll try to create as many events in Deadwood to provide entertainment and to bring people into town.
What makes the gambling industry in Deadwood different, besides providing entertainment and making money, is the end goal of keeping the town vibrant and keeping its history alive.
Gaming isn't all about just trying to extract dollars from our guests. It's about providing an experience that our guests enjoy and want to enjoy
entertainment.
again. Completely.
Yeah.
On the secondary side of that, or the downstream side of that, gaming, since it's been legalized, has contributed over $70 million toward the school funds and state funds, $74 million to Lawrence County and Deadwood, and some of the other positive impacts are the outputs of our gaming taxes has really benefited our historic preservation, and local Deadwood residents can apply for historical grants to improve their homes, and so gaming is very misunderstood. There's so many social and state and local impacts financially that just goes unnoticed.
Legalized gambling in Deadwood generates about $150 million a year. And of course, that money is then taxed and distributed to different agencies, including the City of Deadwood and the state's general fund.
Of course, there's a 9% overall tax for gaming. And it's a complicated formula that breaks that down. 1% of that 9% goes directly to the state of South Dakota to the general fund. The 8% is split with 40% of it going to state tourism, 10% going to Lawrence County, and the remaining 50% going to the city of Deadwood until Deadwood reaches $6.8 million. Once Deadwood reaches $6.8 million, a new formula goes into place, and that formula has 70% going to the state general fund, 10% going to the school districts in Lawrence County, 10% going to the municipalities outside of Deadwood, and that final 10% staying with Deadwood. So that's how that breaks up.
There's a lot of fingers in this pie.
There certainly is. There's also a couple of carve-outs. One is $100,000 goes to the State Historic Society that gives it out in the form of what's called the Deadwood Fund grants. They're matching grants for historic preservation restoration throughout South Dakota. And then there is a $30,000 carve-out that goes to the State Health and Human Services that is directly related to any treatment for problem gaming.
Okay, that's interesting because we were talking to the mayor the other day, and he informed me that, and it was, the light went on, this is not about money, generating money. He said that this was specifically for historic preservation. But from what I'm getting from you, that slice of the pie is kind of thin for historic preservation.
Well, the constitutional amendment that the voters passed back in 1988 states that the net municipal proceeds will be used for the historic preservation and restoration of Deadwood. And so that definition of what net municipal proceeds is has been the bone of contention for the last 34 years. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, at first, you could only bet a maximum of $5 each time, but through the years, that maximum bet has gone up to $1,000. And just last year, legalized sports gaming was added into the mix. So, what does the future hold for gaming in Deadwood and the gambling industry on the whole?
Gaming, like a lot of industries, is technology driven. And so I think you're going to see things that from a technology perspective, and obviously people today, young people in particular, do everything with their mobile device. I think you're going to see more mobile gaming. I think it'll start, of course, with sports wagering. Many states have statewide sports wagering on your mobile device.
South Dakota does not.
South Dakota does not. You have to physically come to Deadwood and place your sports wager at this point in time. Deadwood continues to want to be a competitive gaming jurisdiction. We'll have to adapt to what those trends are. So I think that's going to happen. The upcoming trend I see is what we call cashless gaming, where rather than physically putting bills or your player's card in a machine, it'll be on your mobile device and you'll just hold it up to the machine.
With your Apple Pay.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like Apple Pay is today. So I think that technology is probably going to be coming down the road in the next few years.
So, would there even be a Deadwood today if it weren't for legalized gambling? Well, maybe, maybe not. You just have to keep something in mind.
Gaming is the economic engine that makes it all happen. It's what funds and finances all of the rest of the activities and things that we can do from history to recreation to entertainment.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so, it's the engine that pulls the rest of the train, the restaurants, the hotel rooms, and blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely, and without that, that would be a very different place. It may still be here, but not wouldn't be at the economic level that we would want it to be or need it to be.
From the hard scrabble days of gold miners and Wild Bill Hickok to the glitz and glamour of Deadwood today, there's no denying that legalized gambling is just one more way you can hit the jackpot here in West 605.